Hey guys, welcome back to another Social Studies with Savannah video. Today, I'm actually starting a brand new series. Yay! It's going to be on ancient river valley civilizations. That's actually what I'm learning in my school. But if you haven't seen my last series, that was World War II. I did a couple videos about specific people, and I did videos about different events in World War II. So if you want to see that, go check it out. It'll be in my playlist and it'll also be under our videos. So for this series, I'm going to be doing 4 different civilizations: Sumeria, India, Egypt, and China. That's the 4 different civilizations. I'm pretty sure I haven't learned about all of them yet because I'm learning it in my school, but I've already started learning about 3 of them. So first I'm going to cover what is a civilization. So the first thing is there's 5 criteria for a civilization, and one of them is, the first one, it has to have the growth of cities. It can't just be a couple like villages, it has to be like actual structured cities. 2, it has to have specialized workers such as farmers, engineers, architects, priests, things like that. Or it has to have like specific people. And then it has to have 3, advanced technology, such as one of the big ones, because all of these ancient river valley civilizations, they were all built around a river, hence the name. But one of the main advanced technologies is like irrigation systems. There was also like things like the wheel, carts and stuff like that. That was some of the forms of advanced technology. 4, it has to have a form of writing, which kind of explains itself. You know, they have to have a way to communicate and write down their laws and stuff. And then 5, it has to have complex institutions such as religion and government, which all of these civilizations did have since they're civilizations. So the 4 main river valley civilizations were Sumeria, and this one is the one I'm going to be talking about today. This one formed around the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, so it was like right in the middle. It's actually in where today it's called Mesopotamia. And then Egypt was formed around the Nile River. Most people know that. India was formed around the Indus and Ganges rivers. And then China was formed around the Huanghe River. So why did the early civilizations develop around rivers? So all of these, except for Sumeria, are still civilizations today. So you may be wondering why all of them started around rivers. So one of the reasons why was it provided a source of water for people, which is a must. I mean, you can't go like 3 days without water, so everyone's going to need the water. And then 2, it provided water source to irrigate crops. So all of these civilizations, farming was one of their main industries, so they had to have water for farming. 3, when the rivers flooded, because all rivers flood, they would leave behind a nutrient soil called silt, and that was great for fertilizing land. So the area that I'm talking about today is actually called the Fertile Crescent, because all the silt was left behind there and it was in a crescent shaped, which is kind of cool. And then 4, the river provided a source of transportation. So if you think about it, everyone those days before the civilizations would walk. Most of them were nomads. So they would walk, or maybe they had carts, but those weren't very fast. So a river, I'm assuming, is pretty fast. So if you use the river, you can get places quicker. Okay, so on to Sumer. Modern day Sumeria or Sumer, you could use either one, but Sumer is located in the Middle East. It covered Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Israel. So the reason why it was there was because it had a water source and it had fertile soil. So Sumer started in prehistory, So it was actually before there was writing, and they invented a source of writing. So prehistory is before writing, because history can only be recorded when you have a form of writing. The civilization is unique because it had no civilizations to copy. Like, if you think about it, when we do stuff, we copy other people. Like, when we draw a picture, we might look up a YouTube video. Or when we do a model, we go online and we look at model pictures, and then we copy the model. Maybe we'll tweak a couple things. But they didn't have any pictures or civilizations to copy, so they had to start their civilization completely from scratch. So because of that, the Sumerians were very influential, and they created the first written language, which is called cuneiform. I haven't actually looked up the proper way to pronounce this, but that's how I pronounce it. The Sumerians also developed astronomical sciences, religious beliefs, and organized city-states, and they improved agricultural prosperity. The Sumerians were polytheists, and if you don't know what that means, polytheist means they believed in many gods. So their religious belief was that the different gods controlled different aspects of nature, which is really popular if you think about it. Like the Greeks, the Egyptians, let me think, Hindus, all of them believe in multiple gods. I'm a Christian, so I'm a monotheist, which means I only believed in one God, and but the Sumerian people were polytheists. So they had priests, and priests were in charge of the civilization, because they were believed to have direct contact with the gods. So they would perform sacrifices and stuff like that. So they were kind of like the kings of Sumeria. So they actually standardized legal systems, and that was one of the key features of early civilizations. So I have a couple things that I printed out. So the impact of geography. So the two rivers, they provided a supple amount of water for all the plants and people. In Greek, Mesopotamia means in between the two rivers. I'm reading it for the first time. I probably should have read it before. So the three main independent cities in southern Mesopotamia were Eridu, and Uruk. These cities had political and economic status over the surrounding countryside. So the economy in Sumeria. So in every video that I have made for the past like 4 times, I have either accidentally paused the video, like I just did now, someone was talking and I had to pause the video, or my camera died. So this might be like a reoccurring thing, but as I was saying, the economy in Sumeria was city-states, and they were based on farming and trade. Industry became an important factor in the civilization. The people in Mesopotamia were known for their metalwork and woolen textiles and pottery. So copper, tin, and timber were imported to Sumeria and were exchanged for dried fish, which you can tell since they're by a river would be a thing there, dry fish, wool, wheat, and metal goods. So around 3000 BC, BC stands for Christians before Christ, the invention of the wheel was created, making transportation easier and quicker. There were 3 major social groups in the Sumerian city-states. The groups were the nobles, the commoners, and the slaves, or servants. The nobles included many of the royal and religious officials. The commoners worked for the palace and temple domain, and they were also farmers, merchants, and craftspeople. And then more than 90% of the people in Mesopotamia were farmers. So you can imagine that they had a lot of trading and stuff because they had so many crops. And though they had 2 rivers, so they were in between the 2 rivers, and so that must have provided a lot more water and irrigation, which provided more crops. So the most important, famous, and building in the Samaria city was the temple, which in a lot of ancient cities. Oh, I'm on the trampoline, so every time I move, my camera shakes. But the most famous and important city was the temple, and in a lot of ancient cities, like if you think about it, like I just completely went blank. But a lot of the cities in the Bible that Paul is corresponding to, the most important building there was temple. So for everyone who was not a Christian, the temple was the most important building, because almost all of your religious and your governmental and social things were there. The temple there was called a zugart and was built upon a massive stepped tower. So the houses were built by sun-dried bricks, and a small portion of the buildings were made of stone or wood. So I'm assuming that the stone and wood buildings were newer than the old ones, because in places where I've been before, stone and wood is newer buildings. So it actually, the paper I printed out, it has a specific area for gender roles. So the only thing they have on here was women, and most societies, if you think about it, women weren't given as many rights, but in Samaria they were given almost the exact same amount of rights, and they were also allowed to do all of the occupations. And the Sumerian kings, after a while there were Sumerian kings, the families lived in large palaces. So there's another section about religion. In Mesopotamia and Sumeria, each town and city was believed to be protected by one god, and they believed that the pyramid temples that they built connected their belief of heaven and earth. Many religious events were held at the temple, but later, as priesthood developed, the temple became the center of both religion and learning for the entire community. So you can imagine why it was so important. It would be like your school and your courthouse and your church all rolled into one. The gods in Sumeria were called the Dingur. The gods and goddesses had supernatural powers, and they controlled different aspects of nature. And then every single city had its own patron god or goddess who owned everything and everyone in that city. So everyone there was expected to sing hymns, say prayers, make sacrifices, and bring offerings to the local temple for the gods. In Mesopotamia, people looked to religion to answers for their questions about life, death, good and evil, and forces of nature. The Sumerians believed in divine order. That means everything that occurs was like pre-planned or preordained by the gods. So in their religion, there were 4 all-powerful gods who created and controlled the universe. So An was the god of heaven, Enlil was the air god, Enki was the water god, Ninhursag was the mother of earth goddess. So each of these gods created lesser gods who were also important in Mesopotamia, such as the sun and the moon gods. So, on to writing and literature. One of the greatest accomplishments of the Sumerian people was the invention of the earliest known system of writing. So they were the first ones ever to create writing. And writing is such an important thing now. Like, I'm literally reading something that someone wrote. I mean, you can't see it because of the light. But without writing, I wouldn't have been able to know this. So the Sumerians created written documents by using a triangular tipped stylus to make wedge-shaped impressions in soft clay. Later we'll learn about Hammurabi. I'm forgetting his name right now, how to pronounce it. It's kind of weird to pronounce, not his name, but it's weird to pronounce. But he had this giant stone pillar and it had like 270 something rules on it. So he was Babylonian, but the Babylonians actually conquered the Sumerians. So they probably got a lot of their different techniques and religious stuff from the Sumerians. So Enuma Elish and Gilgamesh are examples of great religious literature, while the Code of Hammurabi, which is what I was just talking about, is one of the earliest examples of juridical literature. So the people who lived north of the Sumerian states were also known as Akkadians and spoke a Semitic language. So that's all the stuff I have on Sumeria. I hope that you enjoyed this video learning about the same stuff I'm learning about. Hopefully you like this different sort of style than I usually do. But I hope you like and subscribe this video, and you forgive me for posting my video a couple days late. My internet went out twice, and I also forgot about it. But anyway, I hope you like and subscribe, you keep watching more of our videos, and that you never stop learning. Bye!